He is a five-term congressman and since 2017 Congressman Norman.
Xin chào quý vị, bây giờ chúng ta đang theo dõi cái trận debate giữa dân biểu Ralph Norman và Thượng nghị sĩ Darline Graham.
First, let's go over the rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to a question, and each will be allowed to answer the same questions. Answers should be based on their positions and not include personal attacks. The candidates have agreed to maintain proper decorum and mutual respect. At the moderator's discretion, candidates will be given 30 seconds for rebuttals. And now to opening statements. The candidates will each have 90 seconds. Congressman Ralph Norman.
Lời mở đầu mọi người sẽ có 90 giây.
Thank you, Greta. Thank all of you for coming out. What an electric crowd. Greta, you kept them in suspense for a while. I'm Ralph Norman. I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Been a real estate developer for 40 years. I'm married to the same woman for 51 years, 4 children, 17 grandchildren, and I turned 40 back in June. And we're doing very well. It's such an honor to be here under unfortunate circumstances. Darline, you were a good sister and he was a good brother. But that being said, I am anxious and I'm excited about what we can do for South Carolina. My differences aren't with Darline or really any of the Republicans. Our differences in who we're fighting are the socialist Democrats and the rhinos that go along with it. That's our real battle to save this country. It's not other Republicans. That being said, we have a task ahead of us, and the differences. I've got a proven record, folks. You can look me up. For 8 years, I've been in Congress. I'm the most conservative member. You know how I'm going to vote. My resume is my record. And whether it's all the agencies that rate how you vote, I've been a taxpayer hero for as long as I can remember. Club for Growth, Heritage Foundation, the rating agencies, I'm conservative. What you see is what you get. The differences that I will point out, we have an unknown candidate. Who I am running against. What's clear and loud and clear, I'm not the candidate for the Washington mainstream.
Mr. Congressman, sir, I've got to call time. I'm the unfortunate. I know that your shot clock is not working, so I'm going to have to call time on you, sir.
That's good.
Senator, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. And it is quite a lively crowd tonight, but thank you for having me. And I want to begin by saying thank you for the prayers. It's been a difficult month for me and my family, so the prayers are very much appreciated. I also want to thank President Trump for his endorsement and other state and national leaders like Tim Scott and Russell Fry. I also want to thank Lindsay's staff because they have committed to staying with me, and they are the gold standard when it comes to providing constituent services. A little bit about me. Lindsay and I grew up in one room in the back of a bar and liquor store in Central South Carolina, where my parents worked long, hard hours. That's where we learned a work ethic and the value of a dollar. For 30 years, I have served the people of South Carolina. For the past 7, I led a state agency. I turned it from a struggling agency into a national model. We had 130 employees and a $90 million budget. Because of that, I was elected president of a national organization for blind agencies. I was a member of the State Workforce Development Board. I served on that for several years. I'm a problem solver, a critical thinker, and a leader. I'm a volleyball mom. I love watching my daughter play volleyball, and I know that boys do not belong in girls' sports. They certainly don't belong in the girls' locker room. I'm pro-life. I was honored and excited today to get the Susan B. Anthony endorsement. That meant a lot to me. I strongly support
Senator, I'm going to do the same too that I had. Unfortunately, I have to do to the congressman. I have to cut you off for the 90 seconds.
Lát nữa cho cô dịch lại nha.
I've now done this to both of you.
Một người thì nói là mình không phải là ứng cử viên của DC. Một người thì nói về là cái lý lịch của mình.
Are record high. Americans are pinched at the gas station. Half the country is living paycheck to paycheck. What can you do in the U.S. Senate to try to relieve this economic pain for so many citizens?
Kinh tế.
First thing I'm going to do in the Senate is wake them up. Save America is my goal. Save America is my goal. SAVE Act should have been passed.
Ông
It
Norman
hasn't
sẽ
been. That being said,
bắt Thượng viện phải làm việc
gas
để
prices,
thông qua
we
cái
got to get
SAVE Act.
Straits of Hormuz opened, and the president has done a good job. He inherited a wreck with Joe Biden. So what he will have to do is move forward to making sure the war and the oil prices are low. I've got to make sure, and I will do as a businessman, go to the businesses, cut regulations, talk to exactly what is needed. Affordability is needed all over the country, and it's not happening in South Carolina. It's not happening. It's straining people all over the country. So with regulations and getting involved, I know what they go through from day one, and I will take the time to do that.
Senator, same question too. Gas prices are record high. Americans are pinched at the grocery store, living paycheck to paycheck, half of America. So what can you do in the U.S. Senate to alleviate that pain?
Well, I know how that feels. There's 50 million people in South Carolina. Half of them live paycheck to paycheck. 60% of them don't have 3 months savings to get by. I've been there before. I've struggled too. I trust President Trump to get the Strait of Hormuz open. Iran is the weakest it's been in 47 years, but we cannot let them get a nuclear weapon. But I tell you, he voted to increase the gas tax, and that's my opponent. And I can tell you that doesn't help people at the pump.
Next question goes to my colleague,
nói là
Dan.
ông
On the economy,
Norman gì
Senator
ở phía
Graham,
cho
the
cái
national debt is
thuế
approaching
xăng.
$40
Nó
trillion.
là một rất surprise mà.
Interest payments are consuming an increasingly large part of the federal budget. What significant area of federal spending would you be willing to cut or reform to put the country on a more sustainable fiscal
Nếu phải
path?
cắt giảm ngân sách liên bang thì họ sẽ
President
cắt
Trump
khoản
has
nào?
already done a great job cutting spending. He's cut a lot of fraud, but I think there's more fraud to be cut. When I worked in state government, one of the things I focused on was
Và ca
duplication
ngợi
of
Tổng thống Trump cắt
services.
giảm ngân sách.
I worked to cut duplication of services to save taxpayers' dollars. I think there's more duplication going on
Và
in the
nói kinh
federal
nghiệm của bà
government that
cũng là
we
từng
can
cắt
work
giảm
on
ngân sách, mà
cutting.
thật ra ngân sách
So
của cơ
I
quan bà
think we
tăng
need
gấp
to
7
identify
lần.
more fraud, wasteful spending, and
Cắt giảm những
duplication
cái
of services.
gian lận lừa đảo.
Congressman Norman, same question. What areas of federal spending would you be willing to cut or reform?
Well, the cancer in America is overspending. The fact is, we don't cut anything in Congress. I've been a lone wolf, lone voice for cutting. The Doge Commission identified over $100 billion, and we only had $9 billion in cuts because politicians, both Democrat and Republican, cannot cut. You got to live within your means. And we're facing a crisis not
Nói
just
rằng là
at
dù
the
Tổng thống
national
Trump có
level,
cố, Doge cũng cố,
at every
nhưng
single
mà
agency.
cái
The Highway Trust Fund, Social Security is going to run out at the end of, actually before
Quốc
the end
hội
of the
thì
6-year
không
term
có chịu cắt giảm ngân sách.
that I'll serve in the Senate. So it's cutting spending, it's identifying the waste, fraud, and abuse, and that we already know, but we hadn't had the courage to do it as a body, and that's what
Dù
I
cho
will
có
be
tiền
a
mà được bao
voice
nhiêu cái
for doing that and singling
gian
out
lận dư
exactly
thừa,
what
nhưng
items
mà không
need
có
to be
đủ can đảm
cut
để cắt đi.
and bring
Và ông
it back to South
cắt từng
Carolinians
cái
and
khoản
to the
chi
people
một.
all over the country.
Gavin, you have the next question on the economy.
Congressman, back to you talking about Social Security. If you can elaborate on that. 1.1 million South Carolinians rely on Social Security, but like you said, the program is a significant financial shortfall and insolvency in 6 years. At that point, the law requires a 22% cut. Do we keep Social Security? How do you fix it? And please be specific.
No, we can't
Hỏi
keep
về
it as the
Social
way it is.
Security.
Again, it's kind of like the cuts. We just hadn't had the courage to tackle Social Security because we have worthless notes that it's not like the money that is the taxpayers that's accumulating for them to spend. And to say it's to face a 25% cut is outrageous. It ought to infuriate every American. What we will do is put up concrete bills that will let Americans spend more of their own money. And the politicians simply have not been willing to do that. The Americans
Và
are
ông giữ
perfectly
nguyên cái Social
capable
Security
of
như vậy,
spending
chỉ
their
là
own
cắt
money.
giảm những
Money
dư
is one
thừa,
thing.
những gian lận mà thôi.
The other thing is
Và sẽ
just
không có
calling it
cái
out
dự
for what
luật
it
để
is.
giúp dân Mỹ
There are people
giữ tiền nhiều hơn,
that
xài
have
tiền
a
nhiều hơn,
Social
nhưng mà
Security
Quốc hội
number
lại không
that aren't
có
even
can đảm để
living.
làm
That's
điều
part
đó.
of the waste, fraud, and the abuse that are taking advantage of the system. We'll have the courage to call it out and to
Phải
try
có
to
can
get
đảm
this
để chỉ ra
system
những gian
solved.
lận lừa đảo đó.
Senator
Và
Graham, to
sửa
you
cái
talking
vấn
about
đề.
Social Security, how you would save it?
Social Security was put in place to protect our elderly from living in poverty. So we have to keep Social Security. Lindsay and I relied on Social Security when our parents died when we were younger. So Social Security is important. I have an aunt who's 90-something years old. She relies on Social Security. At the agency I worked at, one of the ways we did it is we helped train individuals who are blind or low vision go to work. Our successful employment rates were trending up each year. What that meant is they were no longer relying on the government, on Social Security disability insurance and SSI. So they were less reliant on the government and earning wages to support their families. So the more programs we have like that, and also cutting fraud and waste.
We turn from the economy now to healthcare. Van, you have the first question.
Congressman Norman, even though President Biden gave him a sweeping federal pardon, Dr. Anthony Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment at a recent Senate Homeland Security Committee hearing on COVID-19. The committee voted to hold him in contempt of Congress and refer him to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution. Do you believe Dr. Fauci should be held in contempt and prosecuted? And as a U.S. Senator, what would you do to hold Dr. Fauci and future Dr. Fauci's accountable?
Got to be in an orange jumpsuit.
bắt ông ta phải chịu trách
I
nhiệm
mean,
hay không?
bottom line,
Ông này câu trả lời là yes. Mọi
folks,
người vỗ tay.
I was the only congressman that stood with the frontline doctors on the steps of the Supreme Court. And
Và ông là người
the
trên gia
fact
duy nhất
is
bảo vệ
that
cái sự
if you listen to the Senate
tự do y
hearings,
tế
him
trong
taking
vụ
the
COVID-19.
fifth, he killed 1 million people. So yes, and if they prove an autopen signed his pardon, I hope they'll take him, they'll retry him and put him in jail. He has no remorse. That's the problem with this man. The ego, the books, the money he made is outlandish. And when he even asked him for to apologize, he didn't have the decency to do that. We should have, and I didn't wear a mask. I got fined by a stupid Pelosi for not wearing a mask. It was insane the whole time. But we have to call it out ahead of time. And then again, it gets back to politicians calling a spade and making sure we don't fall for another virus which is coming down the pike.
Senator Graham, same question. Should Dr. Fauci be held in contempt or prosecuted? And what would you do to hold him and future Dr. Fauci's accountable?
Dr. Fauci stared at the floor basically the whole time they asked him questions. 111 times he refused to answer the questions. I think that's absurd. So yes, I think he should be in jail as well.
Bà cũng đồng ý với ông
Here's
Norman
my
là ông phải đi
concern,
tù.
though. My opponent received $600,000 in COVID bailout money.
Bà cáo buộc ông Norman là
Convinced
có
President Trump or tried to
nhận
convince
600.000
President
cái
Trump
tiền
not to
PPP đó.
extend the $600 unemployment money for laid off workers. So that's a bit concerning for me.
Gavin, you have a healthcare question on Medicare.
Không cho họ report vậy.
Does he want a rebuttal?
Well, I'll let, Congressman, do you want to respond to the Medicare, the COVID question? Do you want to respond to the COVID, the $600,000 and the allegation about President Trump?
Look, COVID was a disaster, man-made, put up with by the government. It's got me not believing anything the government says with what they perpetrated. World Health Organization we should have withdrawn from that for a long time. There's other viruses that they're going to try to put on the American people that we can't put up with, and I would just say we cannot have a repeat of COVID. Is my only response.
Yeah, you have a question on Medicare.
Senator Graham talking about Medicare, like Social Security, Medicare is also facing a pending shortfall, which would lead to a 11% cut in payments. So what is your message to 1.27 million South Carolinians who rely on this program that faces insolvency in 7 years?
One thing we have to work hard to do is maintain Medicare for our elderly. They rely on that. And Social Security, I've already addressed. We have to maintain the Social Security benefits for the elderly. Here's where I have a problem with the Democrats. If it were up to the Democrats, they would have Medicare for all, and that would bankrupt our country.
Và không ủng hộ Medicare for all vì nó sẽ làm đất nước bị
Congressman Norman, same question about Medicare.
Yeah, if you look at the Medicare and actually Medicaid rolls, you have illegals that are drawing benefits, and not just that program, and trying to have some checks and balances. And what the American people want are consequences for these people. You've got to have the willingness to identify who they are and get them off the rolls.
Kêu gọi là phải điều tra và truy tố những người lừa đảo, lạm dụng
it's not
Medicare.
if, it's just when it's going bankrupt. And for us not to even touch the ones that should never have been on the
Nhưng
payrolls
vẫn phải bảo vệ
anyway,
Medicare,
is just
Medicare
wrong
cho
to
những
do.
người cần thiết, những người bị
What would you do to
không may.
improve access to health care across the country? Because it's very uneven. A lot of people don't have access.
Obamacare was a wreck. It was a one size fits all. There
Câu hỏi
again,
về cái bảo
Ms.
hiểm
Pelosi
cho
and
dân chúng thì
her
ông chỉ trích cái
her comment
Obamacare
that you
nó
got to pass it
rất
before you
là
read it.
thất bại.
Every congressman, every senator should have stood up and said, "We're not going to do that. We're going to read it first and understand it." No, it's as a business owner, you expand HSA accounts where businesses can deduct it. You let the patient pick the services that they want. Not have, again, one size fits all. You ought to shop across state lines for your policies and make it
cho người dân
competitive.
có quyền được
There's no
tự
one
do
in
đi
this
mua bảo
audience that
hiểm
when you
và
get a
những cái
doctor's
gói
bill, you
theo cái
can't
ngân
read
sách
it, you
của
can't
họ.
understand it. It's not that difficult. It's done for a reason. We got to hold the insurance companies accountable
Và bắt các
and
công ty bảo
make
hiểm
sure
phải
we
chịu
can
trách
read
nhiệm.
it and understand it and know what we're paying for. That's why these concierge doctors who don't want to deal with insurance companies and the government because of the delays, they want to be able to go pay cash and go home.
Senator, what would you do to get greater access to people across the country who don't have access to health care to make it more even, accessibility easy?
Right. I'm worried about South Carolina. A third of our rural hospitals are in danger at risk of being closed. President Trump allocated $50 billion for rural hospitals. $200 million of it went to South Carolina. I currently sit on the Appropriations Committee, so I would make sure that more money comes into
Bà sẽ
South
hứa là sẽ
Carolina
có nhiều
to
tiền
help
hơn được gửi
support these
tới
rural
cho
hospitals
các
because we
nhà
can't
thương ở
deny
địa phương,
access to people
lỗi ở
in
nông
rural
thôn.
communities.
All right, turning to national security, Gavin, you have the first question about the war in Iran.
Okay,
bây giờ là
you, Senator.
chiến sự của
President
Iran.
Trump signed a 60-day deadline for ending the war with Iran and reaching an accord on its nuclear program. That deadline passed on Monday. Do you support continuing this war with Iran? You have both voted against a war powers resolution containing the president. So what does victory look like? What is a win for you when it comes to
chiến thắng
Iran?
trong cái này là cái
You
gì?
know, I fully trust President Trump when it comes to the war in Iran.
Bà tin tưởng tuyệt đối Tổng thống Trump.
47 years this has been going on. Iran is the weakest they have been in 47 years. The one thing that concerns me is we cannot let them get a nuclear weapon.
Và không
So
để
I
Iran
trust
có vũ khí hạt
President
nhân.
Trump and everything he's doing. I think he's got this and I trust him on it.
Congressman, what does a win look like in Iran for us?
Well, it looks like, he took them out militarily as far as getting a nuclear weapon where you had, Obama paying cash bribes in the middle of the night. So he did the job to take them out.
Obama
They were
đã
a
cho tiền Iran như thế
severe
nào.
threat. And he had the courage to do that.
Và
Now,
Tổng thống Trump có
I
cái can
think
đảm để
that
làm điều khó khăn.
we've got to end it. I think we're going to have to he's going to have to tell the American people what's it going to take if the Straits of Hormuz are still dominated by a country that's supposed to be decimated. We got to have some understanding on that because I'm not for endless wars. You win them and you get out.
Và tôi
And
muốn
so I
chiến
think
thắng,
once
kết
he
thúc mọi
explains
chuyện và
that
rút
is
đi.
what's
Tôi
going to
không
have to be
ủng hộ
done.
một cuộc chiến kéo dài.
Let me follow up on that, Congressman. So what would you recommend to the president that he do?
Ông có
Well, I think he
đề nghị
needs
gì
to,
với Tổng thống?
he sees what's happening in Congress. It's codified. If you put boots on the ground after 60 days, you have to get approval from Congress. He doesn't have the approval. The Democrats hate him for anything he does. So he can't get approval from Congress. But I think he just needs to, if it's more air power, if it's more taking out the whoever the lunatics are that are running the country. Now, what makes it difficult is they have no regard for human life. I mean, they made the comment that they will outlast this President Trump. And so, how are they able to do that? So that he's going to have to go ahead and do whatever it takes to get them out.
Senator, how would you answer that? What would you
Và
tell
ông
the
nói rằng là
president
tổng
to do?
thống nên làm
Well, he's
bất cứ cái gì
already
ông có trong
decimated
tay
the
để
leadership
mà
over
có
there.
thể
I
kết
think
thúc
he's
cuộc chiến
doing a
này.
great job. The Strait of Hormuz, obviously, is not open yet, but I think it will be. Again, I trust him to do what he can to end the war in Iran.
Bà vẫn tin tưởng tổng thống
Again, they're
Trump
the weakest they've
là
been
trong
in
cái vấn đề này
47
với
years. I know
Hormuz.
they're still dangerous, but his goal is to make sure they don't have a nuclear weapon. We cannot let these people get a nuclear weapon. So I think we have to pay a little bit now, but ultimately in the end game, if we prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, which is his goal, I think he'll be successful and our country will be much better off.
Van, you have a question on munition supply.
Yes, Greta. Senator Graham, the war in
câu hỏi
Ukraine and
về,
the conflict with Iran
lượng
have
đạn
shown
dược
that
của Mỹ
modern warfare can
về cái
rapidly
chiến trận này.
consume artillery ammunition, missiles, drones, air defense interceptors. What should the United States do to ensure that it can manufacture enough weapons and ammunition to sustain a major conflict while maintaining adequate reserves for our military and our allies?
Well, one of the things I would do is work with President Trump to get the defense bill passed. It's being held up by the Democrats right now. I do believe my opponent in the past has voted against the defense spending bill.
Bà tuyên bố là sẽ làm việc với tổng thống Trump
Councilman Norman,
để
same
thông
question.
qua
What
cái
would
dự
you do
luật về
to
quốc phòng.
ensure that we've got an adequate supply of weaponry to keep this country safe?
Well, first of all, the fact that we are having to pass continuing resolutions because we can't get the Democrats on anything, they're for total disarmament. So that's what complicates it. But our defense budget for the coming year is over $1 trillion. And by the way, our interest alone is exceeding our military budget. We can't sustain it. We had to pass what was the $320 billion pared down to a $90 billion bill just to maintain and get the weapons that we need to have air superiority. Military has got to be front and center stage, but we've got to explain to the American people where we are. And I don't know what her comment was about me voting against some defense bill. With the big beautiful bill, we made it better. I voted against it because we cut things, and the president even agreed when we went in there. So it's silly season, folks. All these attack ads. It's laughable how she's doing that.
Ông nói rằng là cái việc mà thông qua cái ngân sách tạm nó làm hại cho quân đội và ông muốn thông qua những cái dự luật chi tiêu cụ thể, và ông nói rằng là bà đã nói láo về cái chuyện ông bỏ phiếu chống lại cái One Big Beautiful Bill để chạy những quảng cáo.
That you were the holdout on the Big Beautiful Bill, and Trump had to call you in and convince you to sign it.
Bà nói rằng là ông không chịu và tổng thống Trump phải gọi ông vô để mà ông bỏ phiếu cho nó.
National security question. Mine is. Well, we can go back and forth on this. All right, I'll let you respond. I'll let you respond if
that is just not true. It's like all these ads you're placing. It's fake. No, what happened? What happened was I was on the budget committee. We had another bite at the apple. When you're in the business arena, you drive the hardest bargain as long as you can. I held out, and when we came to the office, it wasn't anything like what you're talking about. It was. He said, "What are you holding it up for?" I said, "Well, the subsidies for electric cars is dumb. The subsidies for passive solar and wind are stupid." I was cutting it out, and we made it better. He agreed. And so we got it passed, and I would do that over again.
Xóa những cái ngân sách cho những cái như là pin quang năng hay là xe điện, những cái thứ ngu xuẩn đó, và tổng thống đồng ý và mới có cái dự luật đó. Ông làm cho cái One Big Beautiful Bill tốt hơn.
Or we can move on. It's your choice.
That's okay. We'll move on.
Okay, we'll move on. All right.
Bà bí rồi.
On the national security question as well. Senator, are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
Giờ là vấn đề quốc gia.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national
Đài Loan
security
và
issues for
vấn
the
đề Biển
United
Đông.
States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military. My brother was in the Air Force for 33 years.
Bà nói là bà không có rành về
So
chuyện
I
này,
will do
nhưng mà bà
everything
hoàn
I
toàn ủng hộ quân
can to
đội.
support the military. My dad was in the Army. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do
Không phải là
support the
người
military.
chính trị gia bóng bẩy.
Congressman, I'll give you a chance to
Là bà cũng
respond,
không
and
rành về
I'm
cái chuyện
sure
này
he
lắm.
recognizes that
Taiwan's a definite ally. And, we have a trading relationship with them that is beneficial to the United States, chips being one of them, and others. So what the president is doing right is he's enabling Taiwan to defend themselves against China. But it's peace through strength that he's showing with Iran that China, Russia, others are looking at it so that they don't want to deal with America, and that's why they haven't attacked Taiwan. If they had some weak Democrat in office like Biden or another Obama, yeah, they'd take it over. But we can't let that happen.
Đài Loan là đồng
take a
minh của
strong,
Mỹ và Tổng thống
peace
Trump đã
through
giúp cho
strength
họ
is
có thể
is
tự
working.
vệ tốt hơn. Và mình không thể để cho chuyện mà
had enormous
Đài
amount of
Loan có thể bị
support
Trung
for.
Quốc
We talk
tấn
about
công.
Israel. And Van, first to you have a question about Israel.
Congressman
Câu hỏi
Norman,
về
first, President Reagan
Do
once
Thái.
said, America has never flinched from the commitment to the state of Israel, a commitment which remains unshakable. How do you view Israel and its relationship with America today?
Câu hỏi là
Israel is our only
cái
democracy
mối quan
in the
hệ
Middle
của
East.
Do Thái với
Israel,
với
if
Mỹ
you
như
go
thế nào?
there, that's God's country. And, we have continued to maintain good relations. And the president, I think, has paid many a trip over there. If you go over there, it changes you. It just does. So, yes, we will maintain a great relationship with them, and we support them. From what we're hearing in Congress, they are ready and willing and able to take out Iran if it means putting troops on the ground. They're trained soldiers, and they're true patriots. And yes, they're a friend, and we have to remain a friend.
Ông ủng hộ duy trì mối quan hệ hữu hảo với Do
Yes,
Thái.
I think we should
Và Tổng
stand
thống
with
Trump đã
Israel.
làm việc
They're
rất
one
là
of
tốt
our
để
strongest
ủng hộ
allies,
cái
so
mối
I
quan hệ này.
definitely support standing with Israel. I am a little concerned about troops on the ground.
Nhưng
I
cũng
don't
lo
know
ngại
that
về
that's
cái chuyện,
necessary just yet. I would like to make sure that we
đổ
try
quân.
all economic solutions
Thì
before we
bà
put
Darline
troops
cũng
on
đồng
the
ý với điều
ground.
đó. Và
Okay,
bà
we're
cũng ủng
taking a
hộ những
quick
cái giải
break.
pháp về kinh tế cho vấn đề
But stay
với
right
Do
where
Thái.
you are. In just a few minutes, we're going to hear more from South Carolina Republican Senate runoff candidates, South Carolina Senator Darline Graham and South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman.
Giờ là giải lao thưa quý vị. Giải lao.
Lindsay taught me public service isn't about titles. It's about helping people.
Quý vị thấy sao?
President
Hiệp
Trump
1,
asked
hiệp
me
1
to
thấy
run
sao?
for the Senate to work with him on the issues we care about. Securing the border, defending the unborn, keeping men out of women's sports, and passing the Save America Act. I'm Darline Graham. I approve this message, and while I never wanted to be in this position, I'm ready to serve the people of South Carolina.
The establishment has already picked their candidate. Same old playbook, same old insiders. I'm not their choice. And this election is not for sale. The stakes are too high for political games. The Socialist Democrats are a threat to America. South Carolina needs a proven conservative with a record of fighting for you. You shouldn't have to guess where your next senator stands. With me, you already know. I'm Ralph Norman. I approve this message, and I'm asking for your vote.
Best ideas and best practices can be found anywhere.
We have to listen so we can
Quý vị thấy
govern
sao?
better.
Có ấn tượng với ai hơn? Ông Norman hay là bà
You can
Darline?
fight and still be friendly.
Bridging the divide
Quý vị
in
thấy hài
American
lòng với ai hơn?
politics.
You may not agree with the Democrat on everything, but you can find areas where you do agree.
He's a pretty likable guy as well.
Chris Coons and I are actually friends. He votes wrong all the time, but we're actually friends.
The horrible secret that Scott and I have is that we actually respect each other.
We all don't hate each other.
You two actually kind of like each other. These are the kinds of secrets we'd like to expose.
It's nice to be with a member who knows what they're talking about.
You guys did agree to the civility, all right?
He owes my son $10 from a bet.
It is never paid. Fork it over.
That's fighting words right there.
Glad I'm not in charge.
I'm thrilled to be on the show with him.
They're not shows like this, right? Incentivizing that relationship.
Ceasefire. Friday nights on C-SPAN.
Rồi, vô hiệp 2 thưa quý vị. Có mấy khứa nào chắc Mỹ á, nó vô nó bảo rằng là tôi đừng nói. Ở đây tôi làm phần phiên dịch, mà không thích thì vô thẳng lại C-SPAN mà coi, ok?
In the absolutely gorgeous town of Newberry, South Carolina, at the Newberry Opera House. Newberry is just about 45 minutes outside Columbia, South Carolina, which of
Chưa chắc
course is
cuộc
the
đời này
state
chưa bị ai
capital.
chửi vô duyên hay sao á.
And I want to welcome back my panelists, Van Hipp and Gavin Jackson. And of course, most important, I also want to bring back our candidates, South Carolina Senator Darline Graham and South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman. Thank you both for agreeing to take our questions tonight. Senator Graham, to you, we left at the first break talking about Israel. Anti-Semitism in this country seems to be growing, at least in my opinion, unbelievably. Is there, what as a U.S. senator, should you get re-elected, can you do to help that, resolve that issue that's growing?
Well, as I was saying, to me, Israel is one of our strongest allies. We have to stand with Israel. Lindsey had a great relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I met with his wife and him personally a few weeks ago, and he was so appreciative of the relationship they had. One promise I made to the Prime Minister I'm going to continue supporting Israel any way I can, because they are such a strong ally of ours. And we have to fight against Iran. Like I've said before, they cannot have a nuclear weapon. So I will stand with Israel.
Congressman, the same question to you. Anti-Semitism, at least in my opinion, is growing in this country. What can the Senate do to try to stem
you got to
this?
address anti-Semitism. I mean, you got to stop, not permit that on college campuses and other places.
Ông Norman cho biết là không thể nào cho phép cái nạn phân biệt
Israel is a friend of ours.
bà Do Thái ở trong
You have to maintain that friendship and support them.
Và tiếp tục
and that's why we have to get our debt under control, our spending under control, and major in the major things. And remaining a friend with Israel is a major thing that America needs to focus on and follow through with it.
All right, turn to China. Gavin, you have a question about farmland in China.
Congressman, more than 40 million acres of farmland in the United States is owned by foreign entities, according to the Department of Agriculture. Chinese investments amount to less than 1%. What does Congress need to do to restrict our adversaries from owning American land and our resources?
What South Carolina needs to do is find the land that's owned by China and they either get it back or make it so hard so they can't develop it. You don't put up with that. They bought land in Columbia that is near our military institutions. You stop that. Same thing on the Confucius Institute, where they had colleges were letting Chinese students come in under the guise of majoring in one major and then switching to get our secrets. They sent the brightest and the sharpest over here. You got to stop that. I called them out. Guess what? Two were guilty of it. U.S. Carolina and Presbyterian College, my alma mater. I called them out. Guess who called me? The lobbyists. We're making all this money. I said, yeah, but you're giving the country away. And they changed it, but we have to be aware of that and stop it, and not let them form these LLCs where they buy it and then move forward. And I'll tell you, TikTok, you hadn't heard it yet, but TikTok is still controlled by China. We would never be able to have a TikTok into China as they're into our country.
Time.
Và đặc biệt là TikTok cũng không thể nào để cho Trung Quốc có thể tiếp tục kiểm soát
destroying our businesses. So President Trump has been the strongest president we've had against China. It's kind of scary. They have bought up too much farmland. The military base he's talking about, the Shaw Air Force Base, they bought farmland right next to Shaw. They're interfering with our food supply chain. That's a national security threat. The AI, and they're becoming leaders in the AI industry. This is dangerous for our children, interfering with AI and businesses. There have been instances where her children are committing suicide because of AI. So we cannot let China win. We have to continue to fight against China. I would support a federal ban to prevent them from buying farmland, because we cannot let China win.
Your China question.
Senator Graham, staying on the same issue, one of your colleagues, Senator Jim Banks, recently has sounded the alarm on the threat of communist Chinese nationals working in our AI labs here in America. And currently there's a provision in the National Defense Authorization Act that he put in requiring American companies, AI companies doing business with the Pentagon, to report insider threats and some of the security breaches. My question is, do you support Senator Banks' effort to safeguard against Communist Chinese infiltration in domestic AI labs? And would you ban Communist Chinese nationals from working in our AI labs here in America?
Ngăn chặn Trung Quốc can thiệp vào các cái phòng nghiên cứu AI ở Mỹ.
Leading AI is a scary situation. So I would support any federal ban to prevent them from buying farmland. I would support a ban against them taking over labs, data centers, AI labs. We can, again, I can't say enough. We cannot let China win the war when it comes to taking over our businesses, buying our farmland, winning in AI. It's very dangerous. It's a national security threat. So I would support any type of bans against China.
Và ủng hộ tất cả những dự luật ngăn chặn
of course. Yeah, you naturally do that, but you have to go further than that. Like the balloons that flew over this country for as long as they did, and when we went in the skiff to find out what the Biden administration and the generals knew, they denied it. As a body, we should have screamed about it and stopped them from doing things like that. But it's all being aggressive and letting the American people know that we're representing them. Yes, we're not going to let China in. Yes, we will go to the military and the ones that really have the intel and take the steps to stop it. It's not going to happen by itself. They're aggressive. They play the long game, and it's not easy to do. But we as senators and House members have got to force the issue because there's so many. They fight you on so many different fronts.
Và phải rõ ràng, minh bạch với người dân, bởi vì Trung Quốc họ đánh dài hơi và họ đánh trên rất nhiều mặt trận.
Make generic drugs, life-saving drugs for people in America come from China. What should we do to protect our supply of drugs? Because we are so dependent
làm cách nào để bảo vệ cái chuỗi cung ứng dược phẩm của Mỹ.
I think we need to bring back all manufacturing to the United States.
Và ủng hộ việc là đem tất cả những cái sản xuất thuốc về Mỹ hết.
The fact that they manufacture our medical supplies or drugs, again, is a very scary situation. We cannot let them manufacture our drugs. Whether it's AI or drugs, they are destroying America. They're destroying our American companies. Again, President Trump has been the strongest president against China. So we have to continue. It's a battle against China.
Congressman.
Yeah, I mean, we bring back manufacturing. We have to have the environment in the United States that incentivizes companies to come back here, which we're doing. President Trump has done a good job on that. The tariffs had to be in place with China. You got to have reciprocal trade and fair trade. It wasn't that way
under the Biden
administration. It wasn't that way under the Obama administration. But you use everything you can to make sure that the Americans are producing what we can make. China depends on our cancer drugs. In many cases we make here, but we've got to use our leverage with them, and they don't do anything voluntarily. You got to make it, and you got to be smart enough.
Mình phải sử dụng tất cả những đòn bẩy có thể để đối đầu với Trung Quốc, tại vì họ không bao giờ làm cái gì tự nguyện cả.
Gavin, you had the first question on whether to regulate or not.
Yeah, that goes to Congressman Ralph Norman talking about AI. There are currently no regulations on AI. It's truly the Wild West. Is AI too powerful to be left to companies to regulate at this time?
Absolutely, it's too powerful. Anybody who has grandchildren, what you see on TV and the dangers that it has when they can make images exactly and imitate your voice. Now, it's going to be tough to do because the internet is unregulated anyway for the most part, and government hadn't been able to do it. It doesn't mean you stop trying. You try to regulate what you can and find out what you can so that it's used in a good way instead of hurting American children and American
đặc biệt là để bảo vệ những trẻ em thế hệ trẻ của Mỹ.
AI is definitely out of control. There have been so many nightmare stories and situations. There have been situations to where AI has gotten out of control and hacked into businesses and taking over accounts and systems. This is very concerning. AI is growing smarter and smarter. So there has to be some federal bans put on this. We have to step in and get control of AI. It's against China, but I mean, AI itself is becoming smarter. So I'm very concerned. It's a scary situation. I'm personally very scared of AI.
Van, you have a question on artificial intelligence.
Yes. Senator Graham, multiple South Carolina counties Colleton, Newberry, Greenwood, and others have passed or are advancing moratoriums on AI data centers because of concerns about the power grid, water and rate bills, and so forth. The President Trump and his administration, however, views AI data centers as a top national security priority in the AI race versus China. As a senator, where would you come out on this, and how do you balance the state and the federal interest?
Làm sao để cân bằng lợi ích giữa liên bang và tiểu bang trong vấn đề data
how
center?
China is leading in this. So we can't let China beat us in this AI battle. That's a national security issue. It becomes very concerning to me. So when it comes to data centers, I think it needs to be heavily involved by the communities. There needs to be guardrails in place, regulations in place. But again, we have to have data centers because we can't let China win in this AI battle. But the way to do it is to put guidelines on these companies to where they have to build their own water and power supplies, or either subsidize utilities so that the rates decrease, not increase. So again, it's more about community involvement. It's about having a transparent framework in place to protect the environment. So it's putting the guidelines and guardrails in place for communities, and they should decide.
Và
but you changed your position
cái quy
because you
định tại
originally
địa
said
phương
you
để
were for
tạo ra
just
những cái
data
khung
centers in general.
để bảo
That's
vệ
what you
cho
said. Here's where I stand on this. I believe in the 10th Amendment, states' rights. I think that for that data center that's being built, where it causes diminution in value of homes around it, the community is going to have to take ownership and use what they can and find out what's the water usage do for their community. What is the electricity needs? The big thing I will do is not let politicians in local communities advocate for them not to give the farm away and not to have incentives for these data companies. Let them pay their own way, and if it has a return on investment for them, but it's got to have a return on investment for the community, and they've had a free ride.
Các công ty thì mở data center là để làm lợi cho mình, chứ cũng phải biết đóng góp cho cộng đồng nữa. Đặc biệt là những cái nguồn điện nước.
Senator, do you want to respond to the comment he made about you?
Yes, I do. Obviously, I just said I'm for data centers, but I also said that there needs to be community involvement, community guidelines, community guardrails. Maybe you didn't hear that part. But what about SILFAB, that you negotiated a deal in your backyard where a company that mixes chemicals was built near several schools? And I believe one school has been shut down because there was a leakage into the groundwater near the school.
Hóa dược với ông Norman để giúp cho công việc làm ăn của họ.
Silly season again. This was a company that took over a vacant building. The school was already in process. Henry McMaster and his group gave them money. They approved it. So that's just not true. All that stuff that's put out was not true. But it's something that is not an issue now. Those community did the right thing to sue them.
Ông nói rằng là những điều này không hề có thật, và cộng đồng bây giờ đang quan tâm hơn về vấn đề
I'm not on the county council. I'm not on the city council. I didn't approve any funding that they got.
Senator,
họ cần phải có sự tham gia và quyết định về chuyện đó.
Well, okay. Let's say that you didn't negotiate the deal. It was up to the county council. I don't necessarily believe that, but you did take money from the lobbyist for SILFAB, thousands of dollars from SEIA. That's a lobbying group for SILFAB.
There again, a silly season again. The lobbying group, SILFAB was one out of, they had hundreds of clients. Solar panels I've investigated because I'd rather get it from the sun than I had from buying it from one of the companies. So again, that's a misinterpretation. It's,
all right, let's move on. Let me ask a question.
Ông cho biết là đó là cái sự hiểu sai và diễn dịch sai câu chuyện về cái khoản đóng góp đó.
AI has been incredibly helpful in many areas like medicine and so many other areas, but at the same time that it's destroying jobs. And although it creates jobs, it does not appear that it's creating jobs outpacing the number of jobs it destroys. So what is the role, if any, of the U.S. Senate in this issue?
I've been in workforce development pretty much my entire career. So when it comes to job development, that one of the things that I'm most interested in. I'm
hỏi.
not sure about the connection to workforce development when it comes to AI.
Câu
But
hỏi là
one of
AI
the
là mất
things I
job của người
did
ta
when I
nhiều
ran
hơn
the
thì
state
làm
agency
sao?
for 7 years, like I mentioned, I help people who are blind or low vision go to work. Our successful employment rates increased dramatically while I was there. And I think we need to bring our jobs back to the United States.
Mà bà nói
Under
rằng là
President
mình phải
Trump in
đem
the Big
công an việc
Beautiful
làm về
Bill,
lại Mỹ nhiều hơn.
he's expanded the Pell Grants into in-demand jobs in HVAC, heating and air, and electricians. So I
bà ca
think
ngợi
that's
tổng thống
one
Trump
way
tiếp
to
vì
grow our
dường như có cái đầu
workforce
tư
is
cho
more
các trường nghề.
programs like that. And again, I don't believe my opponent supported the Big Beautiful Bill despite what he said.
Và tấn công ông
Congressman, your
Norman tiếp về
response,
cái One Big
you get to
Beautiful
answer that
Bill.
same question anyway, but we'll give you a little extra time to
I
respond.
voted for the Big Beautiful Bill. I made it better in the Senate. In the Senate.
Ông nói là tôi bầu cho nó mà tôi làm cho nó tốt hơn
Look,
mà.
the way you have quality growth in South Carolina, and we've got a lot of people moving in. You empower the tech schools. The young people don't realize the opportunities there.
Và về nhờ việc đầu tư vào các trường nghề mà người ta tới South Carolina nhiều hơn.
You've
Và có sự
also
phát
have
triển
to
tốt hơn.
go to the businesses and cut regulations along with taxes,
Và
and
ngoài ra
make
thì
sure
cần phải
that
cắt giảm các quy định, cắt giảm
we're
thuế, hỗ
empowering
trợ
the
cho các doanh nghiệp.
backbone of South Carolina, which is small business, and I will do that because I've owned a business, unlike my opponent. I've owned a business.
Và không
I've
giống như đối
signed
thủ
front
của
back for paycheck, and I know some
là
of the
chủ doanh
issues
nghiệp.
that
Tôi hiểu điều
businesses
đó.
have, but you have to go to them and reach out, and I will do that when I become senator. In every part of this state, we'll go to and get opinions from people who have been successful and who need help on cutting regulations and other things.
Can I rebut? He mentioned me. So I know that you own your own business, but your workforce apparently you've hired illegal immigrants to, instead of taking advantage of the technical college schools where the
Bạn là cả một công ty ông gì đi
programs
muốn di
are
dân lậu rồi
actually
có
working.
trục lợi về từ trường nghề.
Democrat talking line years ago. Look, I've supported illegal. I've stopped and voted for everything the president has done to stop illegal immigration. I don't hire illegal immigrants, and it's just a falsehood that you're trying to say that's not true.
We're moving on to
Ông nói là tôi không hề muốn di dân lậu mà tôi lại bỏ phiếu cùng với tổng thống Trump để ngăn chặn di dân
you
lậu.
want to talk first about pathway to citizenship.
Congressman, let's start with you and talk about this. Do you support the rights of those? And I've asked you this question somewhat before in a previous debate, but do you support the rights of those in the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, DACA? Also, migrants with valid visa status, green card holders, asylum seekers, naturalized citizens, and others who are legally going through the citizenship process. Do you believe in a pathway to citizenship for those folks?
Here's what I believe in: legal immigration, not illegal immigration. The president has got,
Và ông hoàn toàn không ủng hộ điều đó. Và tổng thống
we
nói
have
rất
to
rõ
have
ràng.
a pathway, but you have to get the illegals out of the country now. You're either legal or you're not, and you get them out of the country. And then you have an expedited area for those workers who have been here and have not caused trouble and provide work and for different companies. You have a organized way to do it. But this president has had his hands full with trying to unwind 4 years of everybody in this universe coming into America. And the Democrats did it because they wanted a power base, and it didn't work. And the president's taking actions to do it. So it's got to be legal immigration, not illegal.
Senator, to you, talk about these folks that
Di
do
dân
have
hợp pháp
status.
thôi chứ không phải là di dân lậu.
How's
Muốn
that
có bất
pathway
kỳ lộ
look to
trình
you?
nào thì phải đuổi hết tất
And
cả di
this
dân lậu
is
ra cái
where
đã.
I differ a little bit. People have asked me how I differ from my brother. I differ from my brother. It's real clear to me. If you're here illegally, you need to be deported immediately.
Ba cũng ủng hộ là trục xuất những di dân lậu.
So, yeah, that's a clear one for me. But I think President Trump has done a great job protecting our borders.
Bà ca ngợi tổng thống giữ gìn an ninh biên giới.
Again, I'll support deporting any illegal immigrants. One thing I did vote for was the Save America Act. That's one of the, I co-sponsored the Save America Act. That's the first bill I co-sponsored because I think if you need to have an ID to check out a library book, you certainly need one
Cái
to
dự luật đầu tiên bà đồng bảo trợ là cái
vote.
Save
I'm worried
America
about our
Act.
elections and people voting. There were 6,600 non-citizens that registered to vote in New Jersey, and several hundred of them voted. So we have to get the Save America Act passed. I'll end the filibuster to get it passed. I even voted to stay in recess.
And time has passed. I'm sorry, Senator. Turn to Van for your question.
Yeah, Senator Graham, the Supreme Court recently rejected President Trump's executive order restricting birthright citizenship.
Trời ơi, tôi nghĩ tới điều
Do you
này.
agree with the court's decision? And if a future Supreme Court nominee took the position of this court, meaning that they believe that the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship under this court's interpretation, would you vote to confirm that nominee?
Câu hỏi
I
là
am definitely against birthright citizenship. We have women coming to this country, staying in hotels to have
bạn nói là
children
bạn phản đối cái
just for them to be
birthright
citizens
citizenship
and for them to be able
và
to stay here and take
nếu như
care
trong
of the
tương lai
children.
tối cao pháp viện
I'm
có
definitely against birthright
chọn một
citizenship,
quan
and I
tòa
will
nào
vote
thì bà
any way
có
possible to prevent it from happening.
ủng hộ cái điều này hay không khi mà họ đã bỏ cái xác
Absolutely.
lệnh của Tổng thống
Birthright
Trump.
citizenship is wrong. They're advertising signs in Mexico, pay $4,000 or maybe more to have a baby in America. That's flat out wrong. And I would use a litmus test for a judicial candidate. And Lindsey did a good job on Kavanaugh. And he was a conservative
Ông ca
judge.
ngợi
He
ông
ended up
Lindsey
being
đã bệnh
a
ông Kavanaugh
conservative
và
judge,
ông cam
unlike
kết
Amy
sẽ
Coney
lấy cái vấn đề
Barrett,
đó
which
để
switched
test tất
colors.
cả các ứng viên
Senator,
toán.
two-part question. Is our immigration system broken? And if two, are you committed to an overhaul the system
Bà
legislatively
có
top to
cam
bottom?
kết
So we have
cải
some
tổ
sort
hệ
of
thống di
certainty.
trú Mỹ không?
Well, I mean, again, I think President Trump has done a great job protecting our borders. The Democrats are the ones I worry about,
Bà ca ngợi
especially
Tổng
the
thống Trump tiếp.
socialist Democrats. They just don't want to even have any borders. I just mentioned birthright citizenship. I'm definitely against that. I made it clear that anybody is here illegally needs to be deported immediately. But yeah, I think President Trump again has done a great job and improved. He's strengthened our borders, and I think he's done a great job.
Congressman, sir.
Yes, he has, and it's interesting that my opponent mentions Democrats. The ones that are funding her campaign are the Democrat PACs. The $2 million.
Ông nhắc về cái PAC mà hỗ trợ bà Darline, đó là cái đám dân chủ.
You can bring them up,
2 triệu.
but the Main Street Washington, I'm not their favorite. I'm not their candidate. You are. The money they're putting in this race ought to be alarming for every American. Every ad that you see trying to tear me down is paid for by a Democrat donor who's put up, one billionaire put up a million. I got $2 million going against me this next week. I gladly take that. But it's coming from Democrats who are supporting her candidacy for some reason. It's very alarming.
Senator.
Yes, absolutely. I got several points there. Well, first of all, if we're talking about a Democrat contributing, there was a Democrat that you contributed to in Charleston that was running for an office.
Bà cáo buộc ông Norman cho tiền một người dân chủ.
Millions of dollars in PAC money. I think you started a PAC ad today, so that's the pot calling the kettle black.
Look, let me tell you, the money that the PAC, the difference, mine, I take zero money for Democrat PACs. Bernie Sanders' PAC, the PAC that supported Kamala Harris, is putting the $2 million in your campaign. You know where my money's coming from? South Carolina.
Mà ông nói là cái tiền đó là cái đám, tôi không nhận tiền của đám dân chủ ủng hộ bà kìa. Tiền của tôi là từ South Carolina.
The Democrat Party who see something in you that they like. They do not like me. And I will, it ought to be alarming. Every ad you see is paid for by Democrat PAC money. None of my PACs
And
are like
Senator,
that.
you have 30 seconds, and then we're going to end this discussion.
Yes, I'm not sure what Democratic PAC he's talking about. I haven't even seen the ads, so I don't know what you're talking about. But I do know that you gave to a Democratic candidate.
Bà chối, bà nói bà không biết ai
so
chứ.
I know that much. And again, you've received millions of dollars in PAC ads, PAC money as well. And in addition, you know, you have millions of dollars of your own money. I'm a working person. I don't have millions.
And I'm so I got
Bà nói là ông giàu, ông có tiền, tôi chỉ là một người làm việc bình thường.
We have to do closing statements. You can do that. You each have 90 seconds to respond to that.
Dở rồi.
Congressman Ralph Norman, we're going to begin with you for 90 seconds.
First of all, it's a privilege being here. I
Bây
wish
giờ
we
là
had
kết
another
bài.
debate like this. We had one tomorrow. You canceled it. You didn't want to come. All that to say is that you know, we're at a turning point in America. We're in a turning point where the Democrat socialists are taking it over. We've got to stop it. Again, I mentioned the fact where her money's coming from. The Main Street, Washington, is with her. They're not with me, nor do I want them. I've never been subservient to anything in Washington. Washington is broken. Look, I will use whatever I can to break the filibuster. I will make sure that the Senate wakes up and votes on the SAVE Act. But other than that, we're going to call them out for what they're doing to this country. Faith, family, and freedom are what the Democrats are against. The people supporting you are against that, and we have to stop that. I will recruit more solid business people to run, and I put South Carolina first.
Ông nói là những cái gì mà bên kia ủng hộ đó là toàn từ dân chủ không, và mình đang ở một cái điểm khúc cua lịch sử rồi. Tôi sẽ không phải là ứng cử viên của tụi nó, tôi không phải là ứng cử viên mà DC thích, và tôi chỉ phục vụ cho người dân.
Yes. First of all, I'd rather be out in South Carolina meeting the voters than here on this stage with you. But fact is, I've done more in 20 days than you have done in 20 years.
Bà nói rằng là bà làm được nhiều thứ hơn chỉ trong vòng có vài chục ngày hơn những thứ ổng làm trong bao nhiêu năm qua.
So good job. That's all I can find out that you've done. And we have spent $1.7 million on your salary for the past 10 years, and you named a post office. So,
bà nói là ông không làm được cái gì có ý nghĩa cả, ngoài cái việc là đổi tên một cái bưu điện.
I've co-sponsored the Save America Act. I've co-signed 7 anti-abortion bills. I was the deciding vote in President Trump's AG pick Todd Blanche.
Và bà đang nói là bà đã làm được những cái gì?
Than you have done in literally 20 years. And I think you're confused because I don't know if you want to be in South Carolina or Washington, because you said you wanted to go to Washington to clean up the swamp. Then you wanted to come back to South Carolina to run for governor. Now you want to go back to Washington again to clean up the swamp.
Ông đi tranh cử tùm lum vị trí đó, và nói là giờ ông có hứa thật hay không?
And with that, I thank both candidates. I'm sure you'll get a chance to speak to each other again, and no chance to go out and campaign and talk to the voters. I want to thank South Carolina. They've been wonderful to us here since we've gotten here, and the debates. The debates is a wonderful opportunity for us to get to meet candidates. Always, though, grossly incomplete to tell the whole picture. So I regret we don't have more time, but I certainly appreciate the time you've given us. And I want to thank my panel here, Van, Gavin, and good luck 1 week from tonight. It's a big night. There you go. Now it's up. And they're gone. They're both headed out the door. It's up to the voters in this state to decide which of these two candidates are going to be the next senator.
Rồi, thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là cái trận debate rất là nảy lửa giữa dân biểu Ralph Norman và thượng nghị sĩ Darline Graham. Quý vị nghĩ sao? Trọng Mai cô cũng cố gắng dịch ở những cái phần nào quan trọng, và cô cũng phải chạy theo cái nhịp trả lời của họ nữa, cho nên đôi khi có một số những cái tiểu tiết nhỏ nhặt mà Trọng Mai cô có bỏ sót thì xin quý vị thông cảm. Trọng Mai cô chỉ muốn, tại vì trong một cái trận debate như thế này thì cái mình quan trọng nhất là mình nhắm vào cái điểm chính thôi. Dạ rồi, sẽ được đi qua những câu hỏi và sự chia sẻ của quý vị ha. Bà Darline thì Trọng Mai cô thấy là bà chỉ có trăm thôi. Mình cũng hiểu là tại vì bà là người mới, cho nên bây giờ bà chỉ có thể, thứ nhất là gì, dựa vào nhân viên của bà nó viết cái gì thì bà đọc thôi. Rõ ràng quý vị thấy bà không giấu điều đó, bà đọc thẳng vô trong cái nốt luôn. Và cái thứ hai là gì, là bà cũng bám vô tổng thống Trump, tại vì thứ 6 này là tổng thống Trump xuống South Carolina, thứ 6 này tổng thống Trump sẽ ra đi cho bà, cho nên cái điều bà cần phải làm là gì, là nhân viên của bà bảo gì thì bà làm nấy. Và bà cũng nói là gì, tôi cảm ơn và nói tôi cảm ơn các nhân viên của anh tôi vẫn tiếp tục ở lại với tôi. Tức là bà thừa nhận luôn, bà thừa nhận là bà không gọi là bà không có cái gì cả, Đó, tất cả là gì, là do nhân viên của anh bả quyết định, nhân viên của anh bả vận hành, bả chỉ làm theo thôi. Đó rồi, nhưng mà cũng có một số cái là bả, mà cô thấy bả cũng thứ nhất là có cái sự lanh ở trong đó. Bả cũng cố gắng xoay sở ở một vài câu hỏi. Rồi về cái câu hỏi mà về an ninh quốc gia thì bả cũng chắc là mấy cô nghĩ bả bí rồi, bả hoàn toàn bả mù tịch về cái câu hỏi đó, cho nên là bả mới kiểu như là tôi không biết gì hết. Đó thì tại vì bây giờ cái mà bây giờ quý vị phải xét trên cái điểm ai cử tri của South Carolina sẽ nhìn vô bả ở những điểm nào để họ bỏ phiếu cho bả. Thứ nhất là tổng thống Trump endorse. Cái thứ hai là bả sẽ khác anh bả ở một số điểm. Tại vì nhiều người họ nói là tôi vẫn yêu mến tổng thống Trump nhưng mà tôi không thích ông Lindsey, và tôi không biết bà có phải giống anh bà không. Thì bà chỉ có hai điểm. Thứ nhất là tổng thống Trump ủng hộ tôi, và thứ hai là tôi không giống như anh tôi. Vậy thôi. Đó. Thì bây giờ bà ráng bà xoay, bà nhảy, bà múa làm sao đó trong cái vòng đó theo cái sự sắp xếp của đám nhân viên anh bả thì bà làm thôi. Còn ông Norman á, thì ổng có kinh nghiệm, ổng hiểu biết rồi, ổng nắm này kia rồi, cho nên ổng nói mướt hơn bả. Cái đó mình phải công nhận, mình phải công bằng với cả hai bên. Nhưng mà cái sự lạm dụng của bà Darline về cái chuyện thì cái đó nó lại không phù hợp. Và đặc biệt nữa là bà chứng minh là bà không có đủ cái nhịp, bà không nắm bắt được cái nhịp của DC. Tại vì cái đám nhân viên của bà đã vô tình hại bà ở cái chỗ bà tấn công ông Norman. Bà tấn công sai. Ví dụ là câu chuyện nó bắt đầu như thế này, và trong mấy cô cũng đã trình bày rồi. Bà cho tiền một ứng cử viên thượng nghị sĩ tiểu bang, đó là bà Shirley, trước và sau khi bà ta đắc cử, và filibuster đã phá cái Heartbeat Bill, cái dự luật cấm phá thai khi mà đã xác định được tim thai. Thì á, báo chí nó có hỏi bả và bà trả lời một cách rất là gian dối. Tức là bà trả lời rằng là thứ nhất á, là bà không biết, bà có như là bà liên quan tới công việc thôi, bà ủng hộ cho bà đó liên quan tới công việc thôi. Và bà chưa từng tới nhà của bà đó. Nhưng chính cái bà Shirley đó, bà lại nói rằng là hai người bả qua nhà tôi uống rượu hoài gì, rồi còn gì nó chơi với mấy con thú cưng tôi nuôi nữa, trong đó là con lừa. Trời, chơi với con lừa luôn mới ghê. Sau đó đó thì cái đám của bà Darline á, mới tấn công ông Norman, nói rằng á, là ông Norman á, là đã cho tiền một ứng cử viên đảng Dân Chủ, cũng là cũng là pro-choice. Thì người ta tìm ra, người ta phát hiện là cái ông mà được cho tiền á là ông Stavranakis gì đó. Thì ổng được ông Norman cho tiền cách đây 11 năm và cho tiền để đi tranh cử thị trưởng của Charleston. Mà cái chức thị trưởng của Charleston đó, trong đó cuộc đua đó, là cái ông mà ông Norman cho tiền á, là cái người trung lập hơn so với ứng cử viên cực tả còn lại. Rồi họ đem lên cái là ông Norman, ổng ăn tiền của PAC này nọ kia. Ông nói tôi ăn tiền, không phải ăn tiền PAC Dân Chủ. PAC Dân Chủ nó cho tiền bà. Thế là bà cứng họng luôn quý vị đó. Cho nên là cái tụi nhân viên ở DC, cái tụi đó nó hại bả, nó vô tình hại bả. Phải chi mà hôm nay bả lên á, bả chỉ cần là cái gì, một cái hình tượng, một đứa em gái tội nghiệp, một đứa em gái mưa là bả qua được rồi. Nhưng mà không, tụi này nó bắt bả là phải biết gì thêm này thêm kia, quá nhiều thứ dồn vô một cái người phụ nữ không phù hợp với cái vị trí này, để cho bả ra bả tự luôn ở trên cái trận này luôn. Nhưng mà ai biết được, bây giờ tổng thống Trump ủng hộ bả rồi. Nếu mà bả có thắng á, thì coi như là mình có 6 năm để coi bả ra làm sao. Đó, chỉ tại vậy thôi. Dạ rồi, theo nhiều quý vị cho ý kiến là thích ông Norman hơn là bà Darline ha. Dạ. Theo Trận Michael thì Trận Michael trước khi cái trận runoff này diễn ra, Trận Michael đã ủng hộ ông Norman rồi. Dạ. Rất là may mắn Trận Michael không ủng hộ Russell Fry. Russell Fry là một tên cơ hội nha, một tên cơ hội. Russell Fry đã ủng hộ bà Darline. Và khi mà Trận Michael đọc cái bài đăng của Tổng thống Trump đó, Tổng Trump cảm ơn Russell Fry, thì Tổng thống lại nói rằng là anh sẽ có một tương lai tươi sáng phía trước. Điều đó làm Trận Michael rất nghi ngờ. Có phải Russell Fry muốn kết một cái deal nào đó với tụi Cộng Hòa hay không? Để cho một tương lai sau này. Điều đó làm Trận Michael thấy rất nghi ngờ, và Trận Michael cảm thấy rất là may mắn vì mình đã không ủng hộ Russell Fry. Mà Russell Fry là bị bà Darline đánh nặng nhất trong kỳ sơ bộ. Vậy mà vẫn chườm cái mặt ra để ủng hộ cho bả, thì Trận Michael nói là con người này không có tư cách. Con người này không có cái sự tự trọng về bản thân mình. Con người này không có. Nên là Trận Michael cảm thấy rất may mắn khi không ủng hộ Russell Fry. Và bây giờ á, nhờ cái sự tấn công của bà Darline đó, mình phát hiện ra là gì? Russell Fry ngày xưa ở trong Hạ viện tiểu bang thì là kẻ ủng hộ tăng thuế xăng ở South Carolina. Theo chia sẻ của ông Adam Morgan là cựu dân biểu của South Carolina, ổng là một người MAGA, ổng là sáng lập gia của House Freedom Caucus tại South Carolina, thì ổng nói là cái ông Russell Fry này là cái người establishment hơn, nhưng mà ổng vẫn phải làm việc. Cho nên là Trận Michael cảm thấy á, Tổng thống Trump á, tội nghiệp ổng ở cái chỗ là ổng, các nhân viên của ổng, một số thôi chứ không phải tất cả, hay là những cố vấn của ổng, những người cố vấn chính trị đã dùng cái quyền lực endorse của ông để, tôi xin lỗi tôi phải nói luôn là buông cái endorsement, đi buông á, chứ không phải là dựa trên tìm những người đàng hoàng. Ví dụ như Russell Fry thắng làm dân biểu liên bang là tại vì Tom Rice là kẻ bỏ phiếu kết tội Tổng thống Trump, kẻ bỏ phiếu đàn áp Tổng thống Trump. Cho nên, tại vì cái tình huống đó nó cũng y chang như là cái tình huống của Bill Cassidy ở Louisiana. Tức là gì? Không cần biết ai hết, chỉ cần tìm một người nào đó đập thằng này là xong. Cái đó thì nó chỉ là gì? Thỏa mãn được cái cơn giận thôi. Chứ còn mà nhìn về lâu dài, cái nghị trình, cái tương lai của đất nước như thế nào, mình phải chọn một người nào đó nó tốt hơn chứ. Bà Ledlow đó, bả là cái gì? Cái đám CCS ủng hộ bả. Bả là bắt tay với lại Jeff Landry, mà Jeff Landry đang có mối quan hệ tốt với Tổng thống Trump. Ha. Đó, rồi bây giờ bả buôn chứng khoán làm gì nhau? Phải không? Và trong khi đó ông Dr. Fleming, ổng đâu có buôn chứng khoán đâu, ổng là bác sĩ mà. Rồi ổng làm ăn kinh doanh, có mấy cái tiệm Subway, ổng là triệu phú. Mà tụi nó cũng đi tấn công ổng được nữa. Rồi nó đặt điều chế chuyện về ổng nữa, tại vì sao? Tụi nó có bộ máy hết rồi. Cho nên là cái điều đó cô cảm thấy rất là buồn. Nhưng mà mình cũng hiểu được là tình hình của tổng thống thì ông phải deal với tụi nó thôi. Cho nên là cô cũng buồn là vì sao? Dân Mỹ chưa đủ thức tỉnh. Không phải là thức tỉnh giữa Cộng hòa với Dân chủ, mà là giữa MAGA và Rhino ngầm. MAGA và Rhino tắc kè. Tụi nó đã tiến hóa rồi, nhưng có vẻ vẫn còn rất nhiều người chưa biết tiến hóa. Cái này mình phải thừa nhận và mình phải nhìn thẳng vào vấn đề quý vị. Tổng thống Trump tự nhiên thứ Sáu này đi rally cho bà Darline. Điều đó có nghĩa là gì? Thứ nhất, bả thăm dò không tốt. Bả thăm dò không tốt. Và thứ hai là gì? Cái chỗ ông rally là địa hạt của Russell Fry. Mà cử tri của Russell Fry chưa chắc đã ủng hộ bả. Mà tổng thống phải đứng ra lấy cái uy tín của mình để bảo đảm cho bả. Và thêm một cái nữa là gì? North Carolina, ông Michael Whatley đang gặp khó khăn nè. Ở Alaska người ta đang gặp khó khăn về cái chuyện ranked choice voting nè. Ở Ohio nè, bây giờ họ cử ông Vance tới Ohio giúp cho gọi là gì, có một cái event ở đó, thấy không? Rồi ở Georgia nè, Ở Georgia bây giờ nó gặp vấn đề nè. Mike Collins không có tiền bằng John Ossoff ha. Rồi ông Rick Jackson là ứng cử viên chính thức của đảng Cộng hòa tranh cử thống đốc. Bây giờ á, ổng với lại ông Burt Jones không nhìn mặt nhau. Tại sao? Ông Burt Jones không chịu. Vừa rồi á, cái báo AJC á, tới họ phỏng vấn hỏi là ông Burt Jones là cái ông phó thống đốc, ông bị thua cái trận runoff á, là hai người đã coi như là đoàn kết với nhau lại chưa? Ông nói thằng cha đó chi 150 triệu chạy quảng cáo dập tôi, bộ muốn tôi bỏ qua là được hả? Thấy không? Có nhiều vấn đề và nhiều tiểu bang hơn là cần tổng thống Trump tới đó. Tại sao phải dồn hết tiền bạc, thời gian vàng ngọc, công sức của tổng thống Trump tới chỉ vì một người mà thăm dò không tốt như vậy? Một người mà không ai biết gì hết. Có đáng hay không? Và nhiều người còn nghĩ là nếu như mà tổng thống nói tình nghĩa, ok. Tình nghĩa thì sao? Tình nghĩa thì chỉ làm cho tới mức tình nghĩa thôi. Tại vì đó là tình nghĩa giữa ổng với lại ông Lindsay. Mà trước đó nó cũng đâu có gì tốt đẹp đâu. Mắc cái gì mà phải lên tới mức độ mà luôn cả người em như vậy, lo từ A tới Z như vậy. Những người cố vấn của tổng thống Trump, họ, rồi mấy cô cảm thấy là bắt đầu có những cái không hài lòng rồi đó. Họ biết tổng thống Trump phải deal với những cái đó, nhưng họ không tìm được cách để giúp tổng thống Trump, mà họ lại đi đẩy ông vào những cái thế như vậy. Rồi mấy cô thấy không được. Tất cả cái gì tiền. Tổng thống nói rõ ràng. Cậu không nói trong cái trường hợp của cô Natalie Hobbs đó, ông nói tất cả những người xung quanh tôi rồi sẽ phải đi ra ngoài để kiếm tiền. Họ sẽ bỏ tôi để đi kiếm tiền. Chỉ có cổ là không rời tôi. Vì ông cứu mạng cổ. Cái này mình phải chấp, cái này là thực tế quý vị. Rất nhiều người sử dụng cái danh làm cho tổng thống Trump để vinh thân phì gia, chứ không phải là vì tinh thần yêu nước. Họ chẳng qua cái lúc đó họ may mắn trong cuộc đời của họ được làm cho tổng thống thôi. Ví dụ như khứa Max Mueller, thấy chưa? Đó, nó cà chớn như vậy đó. Ngày xưa làm cho tổng thống đó. Dạ rồi, xin được cảm ơn quý vị đã có những câu hỏi và sự chia sẻ trong chương trình này. Lát nữa chúng ta sẽ gặp nhau trong cái chương trình sơ bộ tại Florida và Wyoming và Alaska. Xin cảm ơn quý vị. Hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong cỡ 1 tiếng đồng hồ nữa.